Number 11. The ultimate loss. During the late-night hours of January 1st, 2018, a man was brutally murdered with a meat factory knife by his housemate. But what was the killer's motive for doing so? It was because the murderer had lost hundreds of euros in poker to him. 39-year-old Thomas Paskovich was found guilty of killing 40-year-old Marek Swidder after he stabbed him outside of their Dublin Street home in Ballyjamesduff, Co-Cavan. The victim, who used to work on a pig farm, died of 2 stab wounds that pierced his upper body. Justice Tara Burns mentioned how both men belonged to the same town in Poland and had known each other since they were young. The accused was employed in a meat factory as a deboner, which meant that he had to remove the meat from the animal's skull as part of his job. That fact alone led to the conclusion that he'd been given a special deboner knife by his workplace that he most likely took home. And because he used the knife regularly for his job, it was likely that the accused could use it with extreme skill. Judge Tara remembered that the deceased had won a large sum of money from Thomas in a poker game on the night the incident took place. He wasn't very happy with how things had turned out for him, and in a bid to make things work in his favor, he stood up and tried to take the money. That's when Swidder objected, because it was unfair to him after having won the game. Seeing his resistance, the accused asked Swidder to leave the house and go outdoors, after which they both left through the kitchen. But that's when things started to go south, as it was the perfect opportunity for the killer to grab onto his deboning knife for what he was planning to do next. During interviews, he stated that he didn't want to kill his housemate and that a power had moved his hand. According to him, there were no thoughts in his head as he stabbed his housemate twice. The defense argued that his lack of thought meant there was a lack of intent, which is necessary to be charged with murder. So, in the end, he was charged with manslaughter and was sentenced to 9 years in prison by the Central Criminal Court. Number 10. Perverted fantasy. During the early hours of July 12, 2020, a homeless man brutally assaulted and killed a female pro-poker player just to play out his perverted sexual fantasies. 62-year-old Jeffrey Morris was convicted for the long, painful murder of 33-year-old Susie Zhao. The two met at a motel in Waterford Township in Michigan, where they checked into their room at 9:26 p.m. Zhao frequently stayed there, but that night she was viciously attacked, resulting in painful injuries to her genitals. According to police reports, this all happened while she was tied up with zip ties. After that, as indicated by the evidence, she was doused in gasoline and burnt alive. According to what Morris told cops, Zhao had left the motel at midnight along with all of her belongings. However, the cell phone record showed her phone at the motel until 5 a.m. the next morning. That's when both her and Morris's phones left the motel. The deputy medical examiner, Dr. Andrew Hanosh, told the court during a preliminary hearing in 2020 that Zhao's tongue was burnt as well as her hair. Smoke and soot were found in her air passages and lungs, leading to the conclusion that she was alive when she was set on fire. Zhao, according to Hanosh, had burns on at least 90% of her body when she was found. An autopsy also determined that the victim's genitals had been punched using a fist or similar instrument. After she was killed, her body was discovered by two men in a marshy land near Pontiac Lake State Recreation Area who mistook it for a mannequin because of how badly it was burnt. Morris had dumped the victim's body there after he was done with her. According to CBS Detroit, Detective Thomas Sorensen stated that phone records revealed 8 communications between Morris and Zhao mere hours before their meetup on July 12th, which ended pretty badly for the woman in the end. The prosecutors stated that the crime carried out Morris's sick sexual fantasy, which revolved around cruelty toward Asians and bondage. The man had already been convicted of sexual offense in 1989. So it only took the jury less than an hour to convict him of murder in July 2020. As a consequence, he was sentenced to life in prison without the option of parole. Number 9. Valorant flirting. On September 26, 2022, a woman in Florida was murdered by her sister, who suspected that she'd been having an affair with her boyfriend. 21-year-old Fatia Mazen was arrested after she confessed to killing her 20-year-old sister, Seima, 15 hours before she called the police to report the crime. Apparently, Fatia used to share a room and bed with her sister, who often played the online game Valorant with her long-distance boyfriend. According to investigators, Fatia saw her lover and her sister playing the game together regularly and viewed chat messages between them as excessively flirty. But despite constantly confronting both of them about their relationship, it appears as though Fatia never stopped viewing the pair's friendship as a threat. And after coming to believe that her boyfriend had told her sister that he was in love with her, Fatia bought a dagger-style set of knives from Amazon and concealed them for weeks, preparing to murder her sister while the rest of the household slept. The killing was then carried out on September 26th. After Fatia called the police and stated that she believed her sister was dead after she stabbed her, a team from the Orange County Fire Rescue arrived at the scene and declared Seima dead 20 minutes later. Afterward, Fatia was arrested by Orange County deputies on the same evening she murdered her sister. She was charged with first-degree murder and is currently being held in prison without bond, while the case makes its way through the court system. Number 8. The GTA cover-up. On December 18, 2022, a pregnant woman was stabbed to death by a man who staged an online gaming stream to conceal the murder. 32-year-old Natalie McNally was found stabbed in her Silverwood Green home in Lisburn. In the wake of the murder, 32-year-old Stephen McCullough was arrested, but later on he was ruled out as a suspect because he used the live stream as an alibi, as it proved that he was at his house in Woodland Gardens on the night of the murder. The footage on his YouTube channel showed him in a live broadcast on the night of the crime. In the video, he was playing Grand Theft Auto for 6 hours straight. However, after an in-depth examination of the murderer's devices, cyber experts confirmed that the footage was in fact pre-recorded and it was put onto his channel as though it was happening live. The biggest giveaway was how McCullough said to his viewers that he couldn't talk to them while he was playing live because he was experiencing technical difficulties. Though he admitted in front of the court that the live stream was indeed pre-recorded days before he posted it, he denied being involved in Natalie's murder. While in court, the police stated the possibility of tracking the defendant back to his house in Lisburn from the murder scene. This was based on an array of CCTV evidence, including footage from a bus to Lurgan and the statement of a taxi driver, who authorities say transported him home after the murder. The court also observed that the individual whom police suspected to be McCullough appeared to be wearing a yellow glove under a black glove while handing cash to the bus driver. The yellow glove, according to Detective Chief Inspector Neil McGuinness, would be compatible with the traces of a yellow cleaning glove that was found mixed with Natalie's blood at the crime scene. McCullough's statement remained consistent, as he stated that he was drinking on the night of the murder in his own home, after which he simply fell asleep. The case, according to the judge, was complex because of the scattered evidence. But in the end, McCullough was charged at the beginning of February 2023 and has remained in custody since the court hearing. He was scheduled to appear in court once again on February 24th, but the case is still ongoing while he remains in custody. Number 7. Basketball rivalry. On October 3rd, 2022, a woman was shot to death in Texas by a man who she'd beaten in a basketball game earlier that day. Asia Womack, a 21-year-old woman from Dallas, was killed on a Monday after she played basketball at TG Terry Park, which was only a small distance away from her home down the street. She was shot in South Dallas on Hamilton Avenue, and according to the victim's family, the person who shot her was a friend. Since it wasn't confirmed at that point, the police refrained from publicly naming a suspect, but later on, his identity was revealed as 31-year-old Cameron Hogg. Andrea Womack, the victim's mother, was positive that Asia had been in a pickup game against Hogg at the park, who allegedly shot her because she won. The family also stated that the two had trash-talked each other after the game. Hogg took his kids and brother home, who'd been there at the park, but afterward he returned to end Asia's life. According to the court filings, Asia and her friend were seated outdoors with a television to watch football when Hogg drove up in his vehicle and got out angrily. The witness stated that Asia stepped up, ready to meet Hogg face to face once more, but the culprit shot her 2 times in the chest without saying anything. She stumbled, and he shot her twice more as she was falling to the ground. And after spraying Asia with bullets, Hogg fled the scene. CCTV footage from some nearby stores captured his car speeding away from the location of the crime. Unfortunately, Asia Womack died at the hospital after succumbing to her gunshot wounds. The witness identified Hogg in a photo lineup during the investigation, and as it turns out, the man had an extensive criminal history in Dallas County. Hogg's past charges included family violence, assault, and robbery. A warrant for his arrest was issued on October 11, 2022, and he was later charged with first-degree murder. For now, Cameron Hogg is being held at the Dallas County Jail without bond as he waits for his next court date. Number 6. Scissor Fight. In October 2013, a woman was found guilty of assaulting 2 of her game mates with scissors following a night of winnings at a bingo hall in Missouri. According to the Jefferson City News Tribune, 52-year-old Margaret Thomas was driving both of her fellow players home after scoring $200 at a Mobley bingo game. But then, when an argument broke out over how to split the money, things became violent. The issue started when her parents refused to split the winnings equally, which Thomas felt was unfair. So, when she reached Ashland, Margaret pulled the car over. She then grabbed a pair of scissors and began attacking one of her parents, who'd been sitting in the back seat. When the second passenger attempted to help the wounded out, Thomas stabbed both of them. The first victim had to get 32 stitches in her cheek after the incident. Thomas ran off after abandoning both passengers, whose names weren't revealed, on the side of Highway 63. However, she was caught and brought back to Ashland by the police. Initially, she was charged with armed criminal action and first-degree domestic assault, but she pleaded guilty to second-degree assault instead and received credit for time served. In September 2014, Margaret Thomas was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Number 5. Footage without consent. On one regretful night during the summer of 2018, a Russian woman's face was ripped open with a glass after she got into a fight with a karaoke bar rival. 26-year-old Irina Malisheva got into an argument with Larissa Livanova at the Sputnik Cafe in Apsheronsk, Russia, after she objected to being filmed on a mobile phone during her performance. She requested for her rival to delete the video, which led to a disagreement that was taken outside. Not only did Livanova refuse the woman's request, but she launched into a brutal attack afterward. She punched Irina in the shoulder and then splashed the contents of her glass directly onto her face. The victim tried her best to defend herself as she grabbed onto Livanova's hands, but she proceeded to tear off Irina's necklace, causing further chaos. Then, the assailant allegedly broke the glass on Irina's head and sliced her cheek open using the broken shards. Irina was rushed to a local hospital right after the attack, where Livanova told her that she wouldn't be prosecuted. After the tragic event, Elena Mamaeva, the wife of 29-year-old football player Pavel Mamaeva, offered to help pay for Irina's plastic surgery. Police have since launched an investigation into the matter, but there have been no updates so far regarding the attacker's arrest. Do you think Livanova will really avoid prosecution for her actions? Let us know in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 4. Feud over television. In March 2023, a woman was murdered in Winton Hills, Ohio by her brother, who pulled the trigger because he wanted to play Fortnite. 21-year-old Amaya Stanley was murdered, and her body was discovered in her cousin's house by Cincinnati police. Sadly, she'd been shot multiple times before succumbing to her injuries. The family of the victim told the police that her 22-year-old brother, Myshaw Stanley, was responsible for killing her because she wanted to watch TV while her brother wanted to play Fortnite. Their aunt, Tasha Lett, explained that Myshaw was an aggressively violent man, which is why, after their disagreement, he jumped onto her and started wrestling with her. Somehow, Amaya managed to escape and tried to climb the stairs to get away from her brother. But when the victim was just 3 steps away from the top, where she would have escaped to her cousin's room to save her life, Myshaw made it known that he was armed. That's when he took his gun out and shot her. At first, Amaya managed to dodge the bullets, but then, according to Lett, Myshaw shot her 6 more times to make sure she was dead before he fled the house. Miraculously, Amaya survived being shot over 6 times and was still alive when officers arrived. But unfortunately, she died shortly after. According to her family's statements, Amaya had been the only one who kept her brother safe and stood up for him. She assisted him whenever he needed it and made sure he had a roof over his head. That was likely why it was so unbelievable for the family to witness such a horrific crime in their home. Amaya's grandmother, Misty Wood, claimed Myshaw had threatened his sister before the dispute on Friday as well. According to Wood, he kept telling her about his intent to kill Amaya, so she felt that her grandson deserved the death penalty for the crime, as it was premeditated. The Cincinnati Police Homicide Unit, in collaboration with the Coleraine Township PD and the Hamilton County SWAT team, arrested Myshaw a day after the murder on an outstanding warrant. On the Monday following the incident, he stood in Hamilton County Court. As of now, his bail is set at $500,000 while he awaits his sentencing hearing. Number 3. Temper Tantrum. At around 3 a.m. on December 20th, 2021, a drunk woman was found assaulting her husband in Tennessee after losing her temper over a board game. 22-year-old Madison Lee Collins was intoxicated and ended up becoming irritated as she was sitting and playing a board game with her husband, whose identity was never revealed. They were at their home in an apartment complex in Rogersville when things took a violent turn for the worst. A 911 call was placed that night from the woman's husband, who reported the domestic assault. The sounds of the attack could be heard all over the building, according to the other residents of the apartment. In the husband's words, the woman got upset and turned the entire table over after she'd lost, and then proceeded to strike him on the head. After Officer Eric Pease arrived at the scene, he could hear Madison screaming at her husband and witnessed her strike another man in the face, which caused him to bleed after busting his nose. She continued to struggle with the officers, but eventually she was placed under arrest. As a result of her outrageous behavior, she was charged with assault, domestic assault, assault on an officer, and resisting arrest. And on December 20th, she was taken to Sessions Court, after which she was released with her next court appearance scheduled for February 28, 2022. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any recent updates on the case, so Madison's sentencing remains unclear. Number 2. Envy. On June 2nd, 2021, a man attacked a woman with a knife in broad daylight out of spite after she won £1,000 from a fruit machine. 27-year-old William Smith was captured on CCTV footage in Laysdown-on-Sea, Kent, as he attacked an unidentified woman near an arcade. He first threatened her with a knife and demanded repeatedly for her to hand him the purse that she was carrying. Inside, the bag contained a total of £1,100 in cash. As she resisted, he jumped onto her, and after a lot of struggle, he picked her purse up off the ground and ran away. While he had been struggling with the woman, he dropped his hat at the scene, which police later found as evidence. The image from the CCTV footage was later released to the public to receive information on the suspect. A family member was able to identify Smith based on the photo, after which he was traced to an address in Shoreham. When police interviewed him, he refused any involvement and stated that he wasn't even in the area on the day the mugging happened. Later on, when forensic tests were carried out, They revealed that the hat that was left at the scene matched Smith's DNA profile. Left with no way out, Smith then pleaded guilty to the charges of robbery and possession of a bladed article while in a public place. After further investigation, Detective Constable Dan Bister concluded that William Smith is a clear danger to the public, seeing how far he was willing to go in terms of violence to steal the money from the victim. Tolerance towards an offense of this nature was downright unacceptable on their part, and the victim was rightfully served justice after the man's arrest for terrorizing her in public. On February 16, 2022, Smith was handed a 6-year jail sentence by the Woolwich Crown Court. Number 1. Arcade Adventure. On the evening of August 4th, 2020, a woman brutally attacked 3 employees at an arcade after she was asked to wear a mask before coming inside. 27-year-old Antoinette Winden was told she needed to wear a mask during the COVID-19 pandemic by the employees at America's Incredible Pizza Company in South County, as it was mandatory under the jurisdiction of St. Louis County. Allegedly, the woman started pushing, shoving and pepper spraying 3 employees after she refused to comply with their request. Winden had arrived at the entertainment complex along with a group of friends. The group refused to put on masks and a dispute started as all of them, including the non-complying woman, were led out of the establishment. Officers from the Afton Southwest Precinct were dispatched to the area at 4:39 p.m. And seeing how the pizza restaurant is a favorite arcade and birthday party location, the disturbance was an unusual event for the authorities. In the CCTV footage that was captured of the incident, the woman was violently shoving the employees around and reaching her arm out as though she was aiming something at them as she was being led out of the door. One of the employees who was attacked, Laura Hackworth, stated that not only was she disturbed and traumatized by the events that transpired that day, but her tongue was still burning a day after the incident because of the pepper spray that gave her blisters on her nose and mouth. That's not all though. Laura also recalled how Winden started spitting on her while promoting the dreaded coronavirus mask mandate. According to the St. Louis County Police Department, there had been no other occurrences in the county that became violent due to objections to wearing masks. In the end, Winden was issued a summons for assault, which, according to the police, is comparable to a citation or a ticket. Which one of these game night crimes felt the most disturbing to you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Bad Badger.